Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, girl. Hey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Knights of the Pageless Library. We are a little podcast dedicated to reviewing audiobooks. I am Ryan Knight,
And I am Bo Knight.
and today we're taking a look at Fingerprints of the Gods, written and narrated by Graham Hancock.
Yeah. Which I feel like it's kind of I feel like this might be the first, other than like maybe Stephen King book I've listened to that was narrated by the author.
It's definitely, I think it's the first one we've reviewed for sure,
Yeah, for sure. The first one we reviewed for sure.
which is impressive since we've actually reviewed like almost 50 books now, I think. So that's not bad.
Yeah, that's true.
So if anybody has anything to say about this, um, questions, comments, concerns, praise, hate mail, whatever you guys want, you can email us, kotpl.pod@gmail.com is the easiest way to get a hold of us.
Yeah, please do. We'd really appreciate any feedback at all.
True. Or like you've said in the past, if you guys want to email us your favorite recipe,
Or
uh,
anything.
yeah, that's great. um, Also, just real quick, we have recently switched recording software, so feedback on if this sounds better, sounds worse, you know, you don't know there's a difference, that'd be appreciated too. So
Yeah. Yeah, we had to make some changes in the way we approach recording. So hopefully this is better.
I hope so. It seems to be so far. I mean, we've only done one other episode, but I think if this continues to work the way it is now, this will definitely be our new daily driver. So
Yeah, I hope so.
okay, so Fingerprints of the Gods. We listened to this on Audible. That kind of goes without saying lately, but I feel like it needs to be said. Looks like this one is only available in audio form on Audible, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, me too. I didn't it didn't used to be that way, but I think they got the rights to it.
Sure, that sounds correct. So this book was actually the book itself, excuse me, was written quite a while ago actually. This was written in 1995 by Graham Hancock, and the Audible edition was published in 2016, it looks like.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize this book was that old.
I also didn't, I mean, I sort of knew that because obviously I've listened to Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan, and I had known the book was older, but yeah, now that I'm thinking about that, it actually blows my mind even more, to be honest.
That
Oh,
makes it even
sorry. Sorry.
scarier.
No spoilers. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
um, so Graham Hancock, for anybody who doesn't know, he is sort of a investigative journalist, and what's kind of sad to me is it puts this under like uh literature and fiction, but and I'll get into this a little bit more
I
after
don't
we
think
start
any of it's
talking.
fiction.
That's exactly. This is this book is Graham Hancock's after doing a ton of research, just like a mind-boggling amount of research. These are the puzzle pieces that he has put together that back up his case that he thinks there was a previous civilization to ours that was more advanced than we are.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And the fact that they put this under fiction though sort of it kind of irritates me because this is not I mean, most people would be like, well, yeah, but he's just like, he's just making stuff up. But in reality, he's taking all facts. He's just taking nothing but facts and basically putting, strings of yarn between them to draw a conclusion from.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I don't really get the fiction. I feel like none of this is fiction.
and I think they might just put this on here like under his sort of little biography thing they have on him here. That's not the correct term. What is this? His profile, I guess, on Audible.
Yeah.
Mostly because he does have some fiction novels that he has written, and he admits to that he does have fiction novels he writes. They are still based on things that he draws from history and facts. So this book, I think, though, was the one that kind of launched his career. Am I right in assuming that?
I've probably. I mean, it's the one that I heard about the most.
Same. He has a considerable library of books, though. So if you find this book interesting, he has a vast library, actually, of books that he has written. His most recent one looks like it came out last year. Oh, excuse me, 2 years ago in 2019.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
again, I don't know about these other books he has, but he does have a few books in his like War God series. Those are fiction, and he has said that. He
Okay.
has said those are fictional books.
I wonder if they're any good.
I would be curious as well. And maybe we'll find out at some point.
Maybe.
So that's a bit on Graham as an author. So what did you think, Bo, about Graham as the narrator of his own book?
I think it's pretty good.
I felt like I was listening to maybe, even though I've never sat through one, almost like a college lecture in
Kind of, yeah.
in the best possible way, though.
Yeah, that is kind of like the feel it is like. But I mean, I feel like there's probably no better choice of a person to read it because he's obviously so like intimately familiar with all of his work. It just makes the
Exactly.
most sense for him to read it to you because it's not like this isn't really like a thrilling story. It's just it's a lot of information, and
Right.
so it really wouldn't make sense to me to have like a well-known actor read it all to you. Like, what are they going to do with it?
Exactly. No, and the whole book is told from his perspective anyways. So I agree.
Right.
It only makes sense to have him read it himself. And again, he's has like an English accent, so he sounds incredibly proper when he says pretty
Yeah,
much
he does.
anything. So and his pronunciation of stuff, whether correct or incorrect, just sounds so spot on.
Yeah.
And a lot of like really hard words, I would think, to pronounce.
Yeah. He says epoch probably 157 times.
At least. um, so yeah, as I kind of already said, this book, the premise of this is basically Graham taking actual things from history, and so whether that be like astronomical, astrological, different history texts from different societies and different races and religions and all these things. He's taking them all and he's combining them all to plead his case that he thinks there was an advanced civilization far before modern society is as we see it today.
Right. And like the one of the main pieces I feel like of that too is that humanity is a lot older than we think it is.
Correct. That is what Graham believes. Um, Especially because a lot of, and I'll talk about this a little bit more after the spoilers, but he looks a lot at ancient Egypt and him saying, modern Egyptologists or historians saying Egypt is only 6,000 years old is almost like laughable to him because of the things that
Yeah.
he sees and the research he has done into um, the texts and all the other things that are outside of the like basic scope that you would see on like a Discovery Channel special.
Yeah. Exactly.
So this one is long. Okay,
Oh,
so
super long.
this book is 18 and a half hours long, and that's a lot of information. So,
Yeah.
I mean, take that as you will, but
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's too long. It's It's hard to say.
I cannot say. I can't say that I didn't want more, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, actually, when it got over, I found myself pulling my phone out of my pocket and being like, wait a minute, are you serious? That was the end? So, you can,
Yeah.
you
So what
could,
do you think? This is. Oh, you can put the price. Yeah, it is.
I'm seeing
Um,
24.51.
Yeah, it's 24. Yeah, 51 cents. Unless you wanted to get it with your Audible trial, you could. This could be the first book you got, and it's pretty long. It probably lasts you about a month.
Right. And also, if you got it with your Audible trial, it would be free. I'm pretty sure I purchased this because it went on sale not very long ago, and I got it for like, I want to say $6 is what I paid for it.
It's pretty good.
So, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll just mention it again briefly. If you find any book, like if you're browsing Audible and you find a book you think you might like, but it's too expensive or what have you, just add it to your wish list and your Audible app will notify you when those books go on sale.
Yeah, which is a pretty good idea if you have your eye on something, but you're working on a budget. You can't just ball out of control all the time. So
Exactly. Okay, so now the big couple questions. Is this easy to follow?
no, I don't even think I understood like 30% of it. That's being generous.
Sure. I agree 100%. That's not to say this is not right up my alley, to be honest. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here after we pass the spoiler wall. But this this did a lot of stuff for me, but the way it's presented, and this is nothing against the way Graham wrote it or the way he reads it, it's super dense. It's so dense with information.
Yeah, and in the middle, I was kind of like, okay, but where is all of this going? Like,
Right.
why are you telling me all this?
And I think that kind of plays into our next point a little bit, though, that this is relatively easy listening, in my opinion, because of the way he actually comes full circle with sort of his overarching argument, in my opinion.
Right, but like that overarching argument's only about like an hour of it.
Right, exactly. It just takes him a long time to come full circle. But
And
again,
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just I don't. To me, the dumb that I am, at a certain point, I was like, okay, but why? Like, I don't understand where you're going with this.
sure. Well, and that's sort of what I was going to say too, is that again, it's just dense. There's so much information that he is pulling from different sources that, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There was a couple times where I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. All these other, all these other religions or all these other um, times in history, people were telling the same story. I got it. Let's move on to something else. Like,
Right.
I mean, and that's not to say that it wasn't interesting, because it for sure was. But I did catch myself being like, okay, I get it. All these religions talk about a flood. I got it. Get it.
Right, but I do think all of that is really important for
It
the
is.
case that he builds.
Exactly. And you're right.
It is just easy kind of to get lost in the details. Like, okay, now we're talking about the Mayans. Now we're talking about the Egyptians. It's like, okay,
Right.
drawing all these parallels. I get it.
So with that, what is your recommendation on this one?
I loved this, but like at the same time, I think it's a little troubling,
Sure.
but in like a good way.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense to me. Um, I found this incredibly for some reason I can't think of the correct word. Like this, I've had this conversation with you before, even before I really dove into any of Graham Hancock's work, that I don't think we are as smart as we've ever been right now. So listening to this just sort of reinforced those beliefs that I have, because it took me, like I said, I've listened to Graham on Joe Rogan, which 3 hours listening to that man talk is not enough time. So just hearing how Graham pulled all this information to give to me to reinforce the beliefs that I already have was just incredible, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's just I mean, especially towards the end of the book, it's like oh my god, it's scary to me.
Super. I do think it's super troubling because it really basically it's saying something that, again, he was saying this back in 1995. So here we are
Yeah.
20, 25, 26 years later, and things have only gotten worse. So I don't know. I mean, it is scary. It is kind of troubling when you really, let it all sink in.
So yeah, what do you think? Do you think this is probably a book that you would return to multiple times?
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I would definitely like to listen to this again. Um, this one would just be a matter of finding the time, though, because it's so long of a story.
Yeah, it is
So
super long.
yeah, and again, that's not to put it down as not being good. It's just like with doing the show and stuff like that. I almost have to be looking towards what's the next book instead of being like, yeah, I want to re-listen to this 18-hour book right now because
Yeah.
it's just long. But I would definitely want to listen to this again, and I'm sure I will come back to this again in the future.
Yeah, I will definitely come back to it for sure because like I said, I feel like I probably only understood like 40 to 30% of it.
Sure. So with that, we'll go ahead and pass the spoiler wall. We're probably not going to get too terribly in depth on this because I don't know that either one of us is even remotely qualified to.
Yeah, and like if you've been listening and be like, this sounds interesting, just go listen to Graham Hancock talk about it.
Absolutely.
Don't listen to us absolutely butcher it.
Sure. And here I'll throw you guys a bone. If you found what we're saying interesting and you were like, I've never even heard of Graham Hancock, go find a Joe Rogan episode and just pick one with Graham Hancock and listen to what he says on the Joe Rogan experience. And if you find that at all interesting, I highly recommend getting this book.
Yeah, I agree.
So with that, we'll go ahead and pass the spoiler wall again. If you don't want us to spoil any of it, which we kind of already have alluded to, I mean, it's not a ton to spoil in this one, but
Well, I mean, like this is all information that you probably have access to right now.
yeah, that's a good point. But if you don't want to listen to our spoilers, go ahead and go listen to the book and then come back here and hear what we have to say about it.
Yeah.
So, kind of like I said, this is basically just a giant book of information that Graham has gathered over a long period of time and from pretty much every corner of the planet.
Yeah, realistically. And a lot of it I feel like he gathered himself firsthand.
Sure. That's what's incredible to me in this is he's not only like he's not saying like, "Oh, I googled the Great Pyramids of Giza." No. This man has been there. This man has illegally climbed these
Yeah,
pyramids.
which is in the book too, which is hilarious to me.
Right. So he definitely doesn't just talk this talk, and he's not just pulling this out of his ass. He is actively seeking this stuff out to prove his case.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't really even know how you could dispute him, I guess, on a lot of this stuff.
And the sad part is, because to me, the things he's saying, they make 100% sense to me. It's crazy though when he talks about how, like Robert Schock and these guys talk about things in Egypt, and the Egyptologists are immediately like, yeah, right, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like,
right.
how can you at the very least not think about the information presented to you? Like that's crazy, and I don't think that bodes well for us as a society, especially
No,
when
especially with like the conclusion.
right, exactly. And I know it sounds like we're just kind of talking, but that's again, there's not really a good way to go beat by beat with this story. Um, he pulls a lot of mythology information, and he basically says, people assume mythology is just all stories. And Graham says, what if they're not just stories? What if they are actual things that happened, but through the years they've gotten they're told differently now. And I found that incredibly like evocative of, you know, he because he says, most religions or groups of people talk about there has been a flood at one point or another. And he
Yeah,
says,
like a cataclysmic flood.
exactly. So he said, there's no way that can be a coincidence that all of these people around all of the world pretty much tell the same story, just in slightly different ways.
Yeah, and it's weird too that like in each story it's like a god comes to a certain person and tells them what's gonna happen.
Right. In almost every rendition of the story, that is pretty much another linking factor, which is I mean, you cannot dismiss that. Like,
No.
because if you accept the fact that uh you have the stories of like the Bible, you have Greek mythology, you have Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology, you have all these mythologies that tell a similar story, you cannot say, oh, we accept the Bible as truth or we accept Egyptian history as truth. Well, oh, but they all must have made a mistake when they told this story. You can't do that.
Yeah. And one of the things I found interesting too is like the similar sets of gods all over the world, which
Sure.
was really interesting. It's like there's always like an Anubis like figure, and there's always like a dog involved in a lot of them. I always thought that was weird.
Yeah, there's usually always like a representative of the sun or the moon. There's I also found it very interesting too that in most mythologies, the gods are human-like, but they're just really big usually.
Yeah.
And immediately I was like, hey, that's kind of like in Dark Souls. Like they
Yeah.
I mean, is it not? The gods really in that they say gods, quote unquote, but really they're just like big powerful humans, which if you're a little human and you're not powerful, you would see someone who is like a giant and can throw lightning bolts as a god.
Yeah.
Like I just thought that was very interesting too.
Well, it's I love the whole bit about Egypt where they can kind of date back to when the pyramids were because they align with certain stars.
Yes. Yep.
And so they would have aligned at a certain time, like they were built very intentionally at this point. Like somebody was trying to tell us, hey, we were alive during this time.
Right. Well, and like he talks about, we could very easily like he said like we could build something that said this is what we see in the night sky right now, and then we might get wiped out. But he said the hard part is because of um the way the zodiac works and the way the constellations, align and their cycle, they could either see that in 30,000 years or like 45,000 years and they wouldn't know which one we came from because
Right.
the way that the cycles work, it would seem like the same to them, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah, there's just a lot of interesting like and the whole thing with the Sphinx too, which is like it's way older than we think it is.
Right, and it's
Like way, way older.
right, and it's most likely way older than the pyramids are, even though
Yeah.
a lot of people claim they were built at the same time. Because
Yeah.
he said they date the pyramids to a certain time frame. They say, oh, they were probably built, whatever, 6,000 BC or between 4,000 and 6,000 BC or somewhere in there. But people like Graham argue, well, why would they have built a giant lion statue, which represents the constellation of Leo, facing where Leo, where the sun would have risen
Oh yeah,
during Leo. He's like,
that's right.
why
'Cause
would
like
they
the
have built it?
reverse.
Right. So why would they have built it during a time when that wasn't true? How much sense does that make?
Yeah.
And the fact, the the way that he argues that, the pyramids and the Sphinx were clearly, because the basic thing that's accepted right now is that, oh, they were built by slave labor because the pharaohs wanted them to build burial chambers for them. That's like, if you see it in school, you're gonna flip through that one, the book that has like the purple covers, and sometimes you have like the book that has like the red covers, and those are your history books. But it has a few pages of like Egypt, and you're gonna see that they show these ways that the pyramids could have been built with slave labor. But like Graham and others argue, it would have taken more work to build it the way you're saying than is even feasibly possible.
Well, that and they are so precise.
Right.
Like the fact that he talks about the angles on the inside, and I didn't know that like in your house, like the angles aren't actually that like they're not that precise in the corners because it's really hard to do. And he was like he talks about the pyramids, how the pyramids are almost perfect 90s, all like
Correct.
all of the
Right.
corners.
Yeah.
And like that's not something that builders can do today.
Right. Exactly.
It's insane.
That's what I mean, though. And so for somebody to say that, oh, this was clearly built, with a small group of people directing slaves to build this, that's almost laughable to me. Because what true motivation would slaves have to be like, okay, there's 100,000 of us, but yeah, I guess we'll carve these giant stones and then carry them however many miles to this thing. Also,
Yeah.
you can have one giant tombstone. Like, there's no possible way that was the reasoning behind it.
Well, and they all have really weird features on the inside too.
Well, and they talk about that I want to say the Great Pyramid was not the first one built. Or no, excuse me. I could be screwing that up. One of the two. It's either the first one built and the others were purposely built smaller, and the one, because it aligns with Orion's belt. And we know if you look at Orion's belt that two of the stars line up and one is slightly offset. That's not like an accident that they built it that way. And there's no way it's an accident that it perfectly aligns with that. I mean, you'd be
Right.
crazy to think that. I also find it incredibly evocative that he brings up the idea of Atlantis, and the idea that possibly Atlantis was the civilization that people have speculated. It was an incredibly advanced civilization of possibly, godlike beings. Maybe they were giant people, but either way, they most likely possessed, incredible technologies. And that his idea is they possibly lived on Antarctica because we know through modern science that there is a large landmass about the size of North America under the ice sheet of Antarctica. So,
Right, and it used to be super tropical too.
correct, because they found evidence of trees growing on this landmass underneath. So,
Right, and like super specific trees that would only grow in like really humid climate.
right. It's just incredible though that he draws all these lines that you're like you said, how can you argue with this? Like, if these are the facts, and I'm trusting 100% that he's talking about things that scientists have discovered, then how
But
can you argue
it's
with
not
these facts?
it's not even like it's not like he brings up one fact. He's like, oh, okay, we'll go to the ancient Mayans and we'll look at this. Now we'll look at the Egyptians and we'll look at this, and then we'll look at this myth from the Greeks and we'll look at this myth from these guys. And it's like, why do they all line up?
Exactly. And he
That
taught,
doesn't make any sense.
one thing I really love too is, and that helps secure this sort of idea, is that he says if this incredibly advanced race lived on Antarctica, and say some sort of cataclysm happened to make either wipe out most of their race or make their home completely inhabitable. Some survivors would have left and spread out throughout the planet if possible, which is why he believes that's why you see pyramids in South America. And you also see pyramids in Egypt, and we see pyramids all around the world. They're not exactly the same, but that makes sense because if you had a group of even 5 people who survived who all knew how to build pyramids, maybe they didn't know how to do it exactly the same, so they went to 5 different places and they taught the people who lived there how to do it the only way they know how. Well, now that makes sense why you see 5 different styles of pyramids that emerge around the same time frame in our history.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I honestly could probably talk about this book as long as the book is, because it just gets me so freaking jazzed, because I think it's such a awesome idea.
Well, it's scary to me though. Like especially you want to circle back around to the end, I guess.
Yes, actually, yes, please do, because otherwise I'll just get off on another tangent.
So like Graham Hancock he does think that like these monuments were put here to tell us about like a cataclysm that's coming.
Sure.
Well, that's what he says.
Mhm.
It's like if you were smart enough to know that a cataclysm was coming and there wasn't going to be very many survivors, how would you tell people that you were here and that another cataclysm is coming? And he thinks that like that's what the pyramids are.
Right. Because he talks about the 5 ages of the Mayan.
I can't remember 4 or 5.
I think we're in the 5th age right now, the 5th sun, excuse me. So in Mayan tradition, it was told that there would be 5 suns, and it told specifically how each sun ended. And I can only remember off the top of my head that the 3rd ended in fire and the 4th ended in a flood. Well, those things line up with what we're pretty sure happened in our past. So he's saying the 5th sun is going to come to an end. They knew it would. Their prediction was in 2012. That's why everybody thought that the world would end in 2012 based on the Mayan calendar. What they didn't really account for is that kind of left about an 80-year range for the possibility of this age ending, this age of this sun. But there was no real specifics on how this one would end.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't most of the ages roughly 2,000 some odd years long previously?
Right. And it has to do with oh man, what's that called? Where like the magnetic field will like flip.
Right.
I can't remember. It has a name. Because that's the reason why, like, I'm sure all you Boy Scout nerds know this. Like, if you get a compass and look at like for true north, it's not actually pointing like directly north. Like true magnetic north is slightly off
Right.
kilter.
Well, and there's also the idea that he talks about how. So we have this very base idea that the way Earth sits is how it's always sat, right? So, you got our equator where it's at, and it's always been there, and it's always perfectly been aligned like that. But what one of Graham's arguments is, what if something happened to the planet to basically shift the outer surface from where the inner surface was? And the way he explains it is if you were to take an orange and you shifted the peel separately from the inside of the orange.
Right.
So if you imagine that the inside of our Earth, and whether all this is true or not, I guess is up for debate. Flat earthers, you guys are welcome to email us. Um, um, if we think about the center of our planet, inside is molten, and if it is spinning, that is what is causing the outer side to rotate slowly, is that momentum that has. But he proposes that if that were disrupted, and say the outside got maybe impacted hard enough to slightly shift off of where it was spinning, it would slightly lose its momentum, but eventually it would regain the same momentum again and fall back into an orbit. Therefore, is why he thinks Antarctica has not always been located where it's at. It could have possibly been closer to where our equator is, hence making it a tropical climate.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, the idea of that to me, it makes a lot of sense. Like, and some people might be like, that is the dumbest shit I ever heard. And that's fine if you think that. But to argue with the evidence and facts that Graham proposes is, in my opinion, would be very hard to do feasibly.
Yeah, it would. Oh, what was I going to say? Something else I wanted to mention. Oh, and he brings up too the fact that like they find all those mammoths that appear to be been frozen in an instant.
Yes,
Like that stuff is
like
really scary to me.
yeah, like flash frozen, because there was a ton of them
Right.
frozen with food in their mouths.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like they froze so fast that there's still food in their mouths and stuff. It's like, and it happened to a bunch of them all at once.
And
It's like, what could do that?
not only that, there were also humans intermingled with these things,
Right.
which just reinforces the idea that we were around with these animals. It's actually a very simple thing to kind of picture, in my opinion. Say something happened all of a sudden in like Africa right now, and flash froze Africa. That's right now, that's where the giant fauna of our planet pretty much is.
Yeah.
Africa and Asia. But you got your elephants, giraffes, all these very large animals. And it's been argued that those sort of animals used to be in different places of the planet. That's why we had woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceros, giant sloths. Those existed in North America, but they are all gone now, and it could be due to this type of event.
Yeah, it's scary to me. Like all of it is so troubling.
It is
Oh man, if
scary.
anything happens, we're screwed.
Right. The ultimate takeaway that you can get from this will help you sleep at night, is that at any moment we could get hit by an asteroid and just be pretty much done for a long time.
Yeah, Yellowstone could erupt. Frickin' who knows?
Right.
There's so many things that can happen.
And the argument that he talks about, he doesn't so much talk about it in this, because I believe this information came out after he had written this book, but is like the Younger Dryas period is a thing he focused on a lot now. And that's the idea that the North American ice sheet used to be huge. It used to stretch all the way down to about the mid United States. From
Well, and
all
it
of
was
Canada was
miles
pretty much
thick.
frozen. What's that? I missed
And
what
it
you
was
said, but
miles thick. Like the
right,
ice miles thick.
right. And the idea behind the Younger Dryas is that something impacted that ice and pretty much flash melted it,
Yeah.
therefore causing a global flood, which you don't have to be a scientist to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If I melt ice cubes in a cup, they turn into water. Like, I mean, you don't have to be a scientist or a genius to realize these things that could easily be possible. Like if an asteroid right now struck the ice sheets we have, sea levels could easily rise several hundred feet, which is where a lot of population is on water lines.
Yeah.
So yeah, think about that when you're going to sleep tonight.
I think maybe don't think about that. If you
But
want to sleep.
think about this. The technology we have right now that's allowing Bo and I to talk and allowing us to record it and distribute it among anybody on the planet, that's amazing. But think about that there's potentially even better technology we used to have at some point in our history.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to help you fall asleep. I just think it's very cool. But
I think you're giving people nightmares.
I get behind the idea though that, because everybody thinks we're as smart as we've ever been. I would say that's probably the general consensus. I mean, I can't say everybody thinks that, but the idea is that we've continuously trended upwards. So we started as cavemen, and we've slowly been progressing upward at an upward trajectory until here we are today. And supposedly we're just going to continue on that trajectory. That to me is the most ludicrous thought process I've ever heard. Can you still hear me, Bo?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have an argument to say with it.
No, I don't. I'm not gonna argue with you. I don't. I mean, I feel like, especially listen to this, like the facts are evident. I don't even think we could do the pyramids today if we wanted to.
And I don't think so either. And this is where I think we could get pretty damn close. Let's be honest. We could make some pretty amazing shit these days. If
That would last the test of time like that, though.
But that's what I was going to say.
Think so.
If the problem with, I think, what we do these days is it's all based on money and profit. Like, nobody's going to undertake this giant thing because they'll say, well, what's in it for me? And if you're like, you get to build some really cool shit that people in 10,000 years will discover, they'll be like, no way. Why would I do that? I need to make $1 million today. Why would I do that? I mean, I think we have some incredible technologies. The thing is, who knows if our technology we have right now is better than what the ancient people had?
Yeah.
Because there's a few times that in Graham's book, even, he brings up that there was testaments of gods in Egypt that when they would construct things, they would use sound to construct things.
Yeah. What does that even mean?
Exactly. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but god damn, does it sound cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool, but I don't understand it at all.
I mean, and the idea is that, and I've listened to several different things talking about a similar subject, but the idea is that we're just on like a different frequency than people at that time could have possibly been.
Yeah, maybe.
Either way, I don't know. I don't want to talk about this too long. I'm sure we're getting boring. I just wanted to say that like this book is amazing to me, and maybe it's because I'm a huge nerd, but I think this book is amazing.
No, it is amazing. It's just I'm having a hard time thinking of things to say. It's hard because there's so many things like I want to talk about, but at the same time, it's like hard to kind of like wrap up this whole book better than Graham did himself.
Exactly, because like we already were jumping all over the place for the sake of time, but Graham lays it out pretty well. He keeps his bullet points together much better than we were doing.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe we should wrap this one up.
Yeah, I agree. So, do we know what we're doing next time, Bo?
I don't think we've picked a book yet, have we?
We have not. So, should we do that real quick? Nah, we'll just talk about it off air. We won't bore everybody with it.
Yeah, I mean, because peek behind the curtain here, we're basically recorded like 2 podcasts right in a row, so
right.
we kind of have a little bit of time before the next book needs to be done, so
Sure.
That's why we haven't picked one yet.
But yeah, we will do that. And just again, too, if anybody wants to have a conversation with us about this, the easiest way would be to get a hold of us, kotpl.pod@gmail.com. And then to continue this conversation even easier, you could ask for your library card and join us on our Discord.
Yeah, that'd be really cool if we got a couple more people in there.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, so with that, we will thank you everybody for listening. I keep forgetting to say that this year for some reason, but yes.
Yeah, I'm really bad about that.
Yeah, seriously, thank you. We obviously haven't forgotten how grateful we are, that anybody listens to this.
Yeah,
so
thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to us at all. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So with that, we will catch you guys in the next one.